podcast. Now today is a little bit different. As you can see, we are in person and we are live. So it's such a milestone for us, and we're a little bit scared, but we're also quite excited to be streaming this out to you all. So as I say, it's a little bit different, and we're going to have an opportunity to have some live interaction and engagement with the podcast today. So if you're streaming from YouTube or on our LinkedIn feed, you can post your questions in the chat, and we would really love you to do so. We've got some lovely questions that we'd like to ask our guests, but we're really keen to hear what you want to ask as well. So please do post in the chat. So today I'm joined by the wonderful Tracy Harrison, CEO of the Northern Housing Consortium, and Helen, who is chair of our Northwest Wish Regional Board. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. Yeah. So Tracy, I'm just going to tell people who you are in case they don't know.
Okay.
Which is rude.
I might learn
if they
something
don't know. So you've worked in the housing sector for over 19 years in the public and private sectors, and in your role as chief exec of the Northern Housing Consortium, I was really interested to learn that 9 out of 10 of your members own or manage all of the homes across the north.
Yeah, we've got a really high penetration of membership. So the main membership area is, for us, the north is northeast, northwest Yorkshire and Humberside, and we've got a unique membership in that it's not just the housing associations, but it's also the local authorities, the Almos, not many Almos left, but the Almos, and the combined authorities are members in their own right.
Okay.
And between them, they own or manage 9 out of every 10 socially rented homes.
Wow.
So that's why we feel that we can legitimately claim to be the voice of housing in the north.
Amazing, incredible. Well, you're going to have such fantastic insight into the challenges and opportunities then that the sector's facing. So we're hoping to get into that a little bit today. But we are here in Manchester.
Yeah.
Manchester Housing 2025. Although I said 2026 to somebody the other day, just wishing the years away. So just keen to know, like, what are you looking forward to at the conference? What's on the agenda that you're going to pop along to? Yeah, what sparked your interest?
Well, we know we're in Manchester because we can hear the rain drumming on the roof in here, can't we? So, yeah, I'm actually, I'm only here for today, so I'm packing quite a lot into today. I came down last night. And I think there's a really broad range of different sessions on. I think Sarah Palin puts a really, really good show together. I came from a session this morning, a breakfast meeting, where the panel included 2 of the mayors, including our North East Mayor, Kim McGuinness, Pat Ritchie, who's obviously now chair of Homes England, Helen Simpson, who's Group Chief Exec of GMCA. So that was one of the sessions that I was really looking forward to, and it delivered. And that was, sort of exploring what their priorities are, what their focus is. And I'm saying it delivered. Actually, I feel like delivery is the word of the moment, actually, post spend and review. I think that's very much where the focus is. And that came out really strongly in that session. And then I'm at another session with Pat Ritchie, which I'm keen to understand Homes England sort of pivot to place. And for us in the north, regeneration is really, really key. So we are very keen to play our part in delivering the 1.5 million new homes, but regen is a really important part of that. So interested to see, well, there's a lot of detail to come out post spend and review, and I think there's an opportunity to influence some of that. So keen to hear what she's got to say about AHP and about the housing bank and so on. And then I'm kind of doing a bit of a tag team with some of our with the rest of our team. So we've got our policy and external relations director Patrick's presenting this afternoon on retrofit in a devolved environment. So combining 2 things that are really key to us. The whole retrofit, warm homes agenda and devolution, which is something that we've campaigned on. So looking forward to his session, and we've got various other sessions going on around net zero and different things. But I think what has been good is actually, there seems to be a lot of focus on how do we get looking at the programme, how do we make this a more appealing sector for young people to, you know, well, not just young people, but, you know, how do we attract people in? I think that's really positive. And a lot of tenant voice on the agenda, and I think that's really, really key, and that's something that we've really tried to focus on in our own events and in our own work, making sure that the tenant voice comes through strongly. So that, I mean, God, that programme's massive, isn't it? You couldn't get to everything, but I am looking forward to getting my 10,000 steps in and hearing some interesting sessions, and then I'm going back tonight.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the sector really being focused on being an attractive employer and somewhere where we can bring people in. Which is something which we've championed for years. So it's really good to hear employers actually trying to think about, well, how do you make that a reality then? How can we look at where the barriers might be and start to appeal? Because it is an incredible sector to work in. I was speaking to 400 school children yesterday, and you know, singing the virtues of the social housing sector as somewhere to work, and there's a job for everybody. Whatever, if you're good at maths, if you're good at graphic design, if you're good with people, if you want to do marketing, you know, wherever your skill set is, there is a role in housing for you. So it's how do we like package that and sell that to that future generation. So really interesting.
That came out really strongly in the session this morning, actually. You know, that Pat Ritchie was talking about the lack of planners that we have, and you know, the need to attract more planners in to work in the public sector, and, you know, saying about the opportunity you have to shape a place, like what could be better than having the opportunity to shape the future of a place, and we need to make that more attractive. But for me, that's the real sweet spot with sorry, I'm kind of going off here.
No, that's fine.
You know, as I say, we've campaigned on net zero for a long time, and it's the opportunity to not only make people's homes warmer and put money back in their pockets, but through that programme of retrofit and through green, you know, new generation with green construction skills, that you can create jobs for future generations. You know, good green jobs. So I think to improve homes and create jobs is then, you know, that's proper physical and social regeneration. So
absolutely. Lovely, thanks.
So leading nicely on from that, obviously you lead a crucial organisation in the sector, Tracy, creating a collaborative space for housing organisations from the north and advocating for them with decision making. So what does the next couple of months and years look like for the NHC? What are your plans?
Okay, so the next couple of months, I mean, we've done a monumental amount of work leading up to the spending review, and the submission that we put in. Our comprehensive spending review submission was very comprehensive. It was about 70 pages long, and was the culmination of various other pieces of work that we'd done. And I mean, I guess, you know, we're here, 2 weeks after the spending review. It is fantastic that housing is so high on government's agenda, and that they really have put their commitment behind housing. So I think this feels like a really exciting time. So I think the immediate focus for us as an organisation is, I said there's still a lot of detail to come out. It's about, okay, what can we influence still within, so, you know, the AHP, we've had the announcements about the funding, but there are elements that we have been campaigning for around, you know, retaining flexibilities within the affordable homes programme, so that we can deal with regen, that we can still use part of that fund to deal with regen, which, as I say, is a critical issue. So I think we will be working really hard with government and with our members to look at which elements are still up for grabs, which bits can we still influence. I was talking to a government official yesterday saying we want to understand really quickly what is deliverable within this parliament, and so we'll be, and I think coming back to this word delivery, it will be looking at what can we do to support our members to deliver, and that's partly about influence and engagement, but we are funded through procurement. So there is also, you know, we can campaign for the money and the flexibilities and so on, but we can also actually help them with the delivery of that.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the immediate focus. If I sort of lift up from that a bit, I mean, where are we now? June. We're sort of 3 months into our new corporate plan.
Yeah.
And our vision is that everybody in the north has a safe, warm, affordable home in a place that they're proud to live. And our 3 priorities within that plan are that we move the dial on northern policy. So you know, that's pretty clear, and I can get into more about what moving the dial means for us. We're all about people, and that's our people and our members' people, and we create value. So we try to be greater than the sum of our parts. So we've got a huge amount of work going on within those 3 priorities, which I can talk more about. You're probably going to have to shut me up.
No, I'm dead interested. We could speak for hours, Tracy. I'm really interested in that piece about moving the dial for northern communities. We're 3 northern women. If you haven't picked up by the accents on the podcast. In a very rainy Manchester, I must say. So if you can hear the pitter-patter, we're in a lovely, almost tent here in the city centre. So excuse that if you can get that background noise. But yes, in terms of that shift in the dial for northern communities, this is something I'm really passionate about. So can you talk to us a bit more about what that means, what that looks like? Yeah,
absolutely. So I mean, the lens that we look at things through at the consortium, we've got a Venn diagram that sort of sets out, or helps us to focus on what is it that we want to influence on. And if something is an issue to our members, if it's something that has a distinct northern angle to it, and if it's an area where we believe that we can achieve meaningful change, if it falls, you know, in the middle of that Venn diagram, then that is something that we will work on. You're going to get sick of me hearing me say the word regeneration, but physical and social regeneration is absolutely key within that. So so a big focus around regeneration. We have, I guess, sort of really led sector efforts around retrofit, and you know, there is clearly climate emergency is a global existential crisis. There is from a housing point of view, there is a northern angle to it because we have the oldest, coldest homes in Europe. And so my view on retrofit has always been that, you know, if you're a local authority boss and what's keeping you awake at night is poverty and fuel poverty and jobs and climate emergency and pressure on adult social services, actually, if you retrofit homes, you start to deal with each of those issues because you put money back in people's pockets, you can create jobs, and we've quantified the number of jobs that we could create in the north through retrofit. You know, we were talking about people falling in homes earlier on before. You know, people don't fall as much in warm homes.
In warm homes,
So yes, there are for many different reasons we see that as being a really important priority. So it's about net zero and about climate resilient communities, and you know, we're seeing all these big. This isn't a big weather event, but we're seeing all these big weather events, and climate resilience is becoming an increasing issue. And then the other, you know, major priority for us, and again something we've campaigned on, is devolution, and you know, devolution of more powers from Westminster, and allowing people who have skin in the game and who understand what is required at their local level to be able to deal with the challenges and the opportunities. So there are sort of campaigning priorities within this corporate plan, but we're really clear that we are not a talking shop. We are absolutely about creating change, and I think increasingly as an organisation we are able to point at things and say we helped to influence that. Nothing ever happens as a result of one organisation. It's always a combination of voices that make things happen. actually I think spending review has been a great example
Example of that,
the,
yeah,
you know, of
definitely.
all the sector bodies working
Working
together,
together.
hammering the
Yeah,
same points, you know, some
absolutely.
consistency of messaging. And I think, you know, when they keep hearing it from various different sources, it lands.
Yeah.
And I think we've sort of demonstrated that. So.
Yeah, I think the sector's definitely sort of seized that opportunity that like housing is at the top of government's agenda now.
Yeah.
And how do we ensure that collectively we're working with government to really get the policies, the strategies, the funding that's needed.
Yeah.
So it feels like the past sort of 12 months have been a real opportune moment for the sector, but with that opportunity comes that responsibility to actually get it right.
Yeah.
And yeah, collaboration and work together has got to be such a big part of that.
Yeah, 100%. I think this, you know, this is a sort of once in a generation opportunity. If you don't do it now, then when are we going to do it? And we won't get the chance again. So we absolutely have to deliver. I think, you know, collaboration is really, really key to doing that. And I think actually in the north, we sort of have the partnerships set up to be really well placed to do that. So I mean, we're going to have all of the north covered by you know, by some sort of devolved arrangement. What we've seen in all of the mayoral combined authority areas is the growth of this housing partnership model, and you know, housing associations and stockholding authorities coming together and looking at, well, working together, how can we go further faster, and how can we help to deliver for the mayors. And I mean, to me, for you know, if you're a mayor, it's an absolute gift, isn't it?
To have that
you
infrastructure.
have all of these, you know, these organisations who are spending bazillions of pounds, who have a massive economic impact within their communities, who are employing thousands and thousands of people, who are anchor institutions. The fact that they have come together and said, okay, this is us, if you want to talk to us, here we are, is there's nothing not to like about that, is there, if you're a mayor?
Yeah, and what I've seen in the northeast, because I'm part of the Northeast Housing Partnership, is that a real inclusive approach is being taken to that, and that broad agenda across housing isn't just housing. So within the Northeast Housing Partnership, we've got the NHS represented in the Integrated Care Board. I work for Crisis, the homelessness charity, and we've got a seat at the table. It's that actually, if we're going to fix the problems here, this cannot just be the housing providers and the local authorities alone. This has to be that broad network of organisations, sharing strategies, sharing plans to do that collectively, which has just been a breath of fresh air, if I'm honest. You know, just to meet monthly and to get everybody around the table who's got skin in the game. It's been game changing.
No, you're so right. It's I think that has been, you know, such a positive that you've got health and social care. You've got the right people sitting around a table, and I think what we've seen in the Northeast Housing Partnership is that ability to sort of synthesise some of the work that was going on in other places and pull it together. I think, you know, you use the health example, but skills is another great example, because you've got the right scale in a mayoral combined authority area to be able to do something meaningful. And there really is that. There is a, you know, palpable sense of people wanting to work together. And you know, I mean, GM started this model, and they've been the sort of, you know, trailblazers in a number of different ways, and everybody else has emulated that.
Yes, definitely.
I'm really proud that with the consortium we're supporting the majority of those housing partnerships, acting as secretariat for a number of them, and I think, you know, to be able to look at influence at a local level and then building that up to a pan-northern voice is really, really powerful. And
really powerful.
we know that a number of the northern mayors sort of identify as a group. You know, they talk about this great north group. You've got the White Rose mayoral grouping. So actually, these housing partnerships, you know, we're managing to pull the housing partnerships together a bit as well to look at that. So really, really exciting. But partnership is absolutely key, I think, to driving that.
Tracy, you've talked a little bit about already around how we make the sector brilliant place to work, and if we're going to deliver the homes that we need across the north, we need the skills, we need the employees to come in and actually design, build, deliver, manage those homes. So I wish we do an annual survey where we ask women in the sector, like, what's it like to work in the sector at the moment? It's a bit of a litmus test, really, as to where we're at. And every single year, what we hear back is workplace culture is the deal breaker, really, around people, whether people want to stay in the sector or leave the sector. And I know this is something you're quite passionate about, and at the consortium, you're quite, driven to ensure that the culture there is positive and somewhere where people would want to stay. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've been doing that? Top tips, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am a great believer that culture eats strategy for breakfast every day of the week. So I do think it is absolutely key. I think that we've always had a good culture, and I think that when the pandemic happened, I feel like I sound like my grandma going on about the war now.
In the pandemic days.
We worked really hard at comms, internal comms, to hold and connection, to hold everybody together. And then we went to this hybrid way of working, and we're probably quite unusual as an organisation in that we don't mandate any number of days in the office or so we do work in a hybrid way. What has been, and obviously not every organisation can do this, but what's been really positive for us is that there aren't any of our roles that you couldn't do and be based elsewhere. So we now, having only in the past had Northeast based employees, we've now got somebody in Edinburgh, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, so people spread around. And I think that it's like we're all in this giant experiment still, isn't it? And trying to figure our way through it. And I think it is a bit of a move and feast. We work at it very, very consciously. So connection is really, really key. I think trying to really focus on individual and team requirements in terms of how much face-to-face time you get, how much time with your colleagues you get, and then how you spread learning. And when you're all in an office together, you learn a lot by osmosis, don't you? And you learn about other people's jobs because you can overhear conversations
and jump in
and I think the further that you get from that situation pre-pandemic where everybody was in the office together, the more you've got employees who haven't already got relationships with other people, so they don't automatically think, like ring Linda and ask about that. So I mean we have quarterly staff get-togethers where the whole team comes together. It's quite business focused in the morning. We do something more sociable in the afternoon. So that might be a meal and drinks or whatever. We've done volunteering together, that sort of thing. But we do the teams meet on a regular basis. We do virtual brews a couple of times a week. We do takeovers of these virtual brews. So they had one last week or the week before that was about fashion on a budget, and a member of staff she spoke about what she did, and people sort of joined in, came with their ideas. We've done that around journaling and the powers of journaling and people, so that kind of thing. We have a massive focus on well-being. So we do a huge amount on physical and mental well-being, and actually on the mental side we include financial within that. So we set time aside for staff to sort out, we've done this several times where we've said, okay, there's a 3-hour block in your diary. You don't have to use that particular time slot, but use that to cancel all the direct debits for things that cancel your Sky subscription.
Sometimes you need that scheduled time, don't you? Because you're like, I know I should do it, but my day is so full.
It's all those little sort of niggling things. So we've done we've done work around that, but we have campaigns running all the time around wellbeing. But that's very much owned by the staff.
Mm-hmm.
So they design that, they decide which, and we're surveying them to find out what is important to them and what the focus of that needs to be. So yeah, I mean, we were right at the start of the pandemic, we did a session on menopause, and at the time it was really unusual. I mean, now everybody talks about it. At the time when we ran that session, and we opened it up to members as well, but it was for our staff. There was a couple of people said to me, "Oh, you're quite brave doing that." Now it seems
now
sort of odd
common,
that people would think that, but so yeah, we've had this big focus on physical and mental well-being, but a lot of it is about connection. But I don't think that we've got it all right or got all of the answers, and we're about to start a culture and performance development program in the next couple of months, which will be looking at trying to make sure that there's consistency for staff in, how you are managed. Because like every organisation, people are promoted on technical ability in their role, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you can manage people. So we're going to do a load of work around that. And then I think the other thing in terms of values is, we attract as an organisation people who are inspired by our vision and who want to make a difference, and by and large that's why people will be coming in and they see the opportunity to create that meaningful change. And we have a very strong values-based culture, and the staff write the values. We will hold people accountable on those values. So if people aren't living the values, we will call them out on that. So so yeah, I mean, to me, you want a workplace where people can come and be themselves and, feel included, feel valued. And I think just have a really good laugh. That's the other thing, you know what I mean? It's sort of, you have to have I think that's one of the things that I always loved at the consortium. We have a really good belly laugh at least once a day.
You spend a lot of time together, don't you? I sometimes see my colleagues more than I see my family. And you do sometimes just need to stop taking yourself so seriously. And just be a bit vulnerable in that, I suppose, and being able to just open up.
I was just going to say, so you've obviously been, a leader in the sector for a long time, and seeing female leaders is always really inspiring. The culture stuff is great, and I think having a CEO who leads in that way is phenomenal, but not every organisation is that lucky, to have someone like you at the top. There will be people watching and listening to this who want to instill those values themselves. If you were to speak to anyone that's listening, what advice would you give them to start making that change? One person can create a knock-on effect and a ripple. What would you tell them? What would you give them as your nugget of advice for beginning this culture change?
It is that thing about be the change that you want to see, isn't it? It's and I think that I think it's about holding yourself to your own values, even if the culture of the organisation isn't. But you know what? I think if you're in an organisation where you don't feel that your values align with it, then I think you're best to move. In honesty, and I don't mean that to sound sort of defeatist, but I think. And I don't want to sort of sound too woo-woo, but I think if you live in a, and you've just said we're at work a lot of the day, if you spend a lot of your day, week, year living in a way that is incongruent with your values, will make you ill. So, I think it is, but I think, hold yourself to your own standards rather than being, if you think other people's aren't as high, I would always say hold yourself to your own high standards, and I think you inspire other people through that anyway.
How are we doing for questions?
So Let me just check, we've got them coming in from 2 channels, so LinkedIn and YouTube, please, everybody. So I couldn't quite get the YouTube ones up, so I'll start with a question that's on our LinkedIn, if that's okay. So this is from Caroline, who is our North Wales Chair of Wish, and she says, what innovative strategies or initiatives do you believe are most crucial for the sector to adopt and ensure equitable and sustainable housing solutions for all? And how do you think that female leadership may drive those changes?
What innovative strategies do you think you need to? I mean, it's quite a long question.
It is a long question. Do you want me to read it
Say it again. I'm trying to get to the nub of what she's asking there. Sorry, you're having to go right back into it.
So what innovative strategies or initiatives do you believe are most crucial for the sector to adopt and ensure equitable and sustainable housing solutions for all?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think we'll come back to this thing of delivery, don't we?
Yeah.
And now is the moment. So I think we have to get on with it. We'll have to crack on.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. Do I think it's about innovative strategies, or do I think it's about taking what we've got there now and running with it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really important that we don't just build, you know, it can't just be about the numbers.
Yeah.
It has to be about the right homes in the right places.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we really need to make sure that we maintain that focus on, that we don't just build anything anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm not sure that it's about, in terms of equitable solutions, it's about providing more social and affordable homes. So I think that is getting on with, okay, we've got the best spending review result that we could possibly have hoped for.
Yeah.
There is still detail to work through, but I think it's about okay, how we're going to get on with this and how are we going to start to really deliver. And the bit about female leaders.
What role do you think female leadership has in driving those changes through?
I think that now you talked about partnership and collaboration before.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if maybe female leaders are inspiring male leaders to be more like this, or allowing them to be more like this. But I think
encouraging.
Yeah. I think that women are more naturally, inclined to that partnership. I think there is less sort of competitiveness, more sharing. So yeah, I think that's probably something that I think the more that we work in partnership, that holds a lot of the answers. And I think particularly, I would go back to, again, not just building houses, but thinking more broadly and thinking about place. And we've talked about place and about it being, housing is key, but it's also about health and it's about transport and it's about jobs and skills and what have you. So I think thinking more broadly about the possibilities.
I think that piece around female leadership, like one of the things that Wish has always had as our mission is around the power of the network. And there's something about how women build connections and relationships, which is different. It's not better, but it's often different to how men did. And when Wish was set up all those decades ago, it was like, well, women don't have time to go to the golf course and network, because the women who were in leadership roles in housing organisations often had to go home and still do the mum and the wife bit. And I think there is so much learning that I've seen that Wish has acquired over the years around how you collaborate well, just through creating spaces to do that. And men come into that space as well. It's not just that it's solely women, but I do think, just picking up on what you said there around, like, women seem to do this well, and it's the time for it.
I think that thing about building and using your network is really, really key. And actually, I think that in the trickiest situations that I've had as a chief exec, I think my reflection now would be, I wish I'd used my network more.
Yeah.
Because I think that you know, I think that when you know, it's quite a lonely position being a chief exec,
Yes.
and I think that when you come up against a problem, you want to look like you've got it gripped and that you've got, you know, that and so probably the closest relationships that I would have had in the sector would be with people on my board.
Yeah.
And at the time, I probably thought, well, I don't want to look like I've got to ask.
Yeah.
And so I think I held a lot of stress, or created a lot of stress for myself
Yes.
by not saying, actually, I'm having a nightmare with this situation.
Yeah.
And you find that when you do, you know, people say, oh, I've had that before.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you're not the only person in the world trying to
I was
deal
gonna
with the
say, it's that problem
situation.
shared, problem halved, isn't it? And I think one of the things we've been talking about in our board is you prioritise networking the more senior you get in your role. I know for me that creating that space, having that control of your own diary to manage and maintain your network, but actually you need it right from the very beginning.
Yes.
And I think that's where Wish can really kind of support that, is, you know, at every level in the organisation, you've got to make use of the people around you, because you're better with good people, and it's how you utilise that all the way through. And to hear, even at chief exec level, to recognise the importance of that is amazing. And I think everyone who's listening or watching or needs to prioritise it. You know, it makes such a big difference. It makes such a big difference to you at work. It really does.
It really does. And I think that you know, when it's, I generally feel if there's a challenge that you have to deal with at work, I don't, you know, I always think, well, the answers are in the room, because I surround myself with people who are much better than me.
Absolutely.
So all I've got to do is pull them together and create the opportunity and create the environment for them to solve the problems. And I think, but when there's something that is kind of confidential or more personal or whatever, I think having that network of people that you really trust, that you can go and talk to, is absolutely worth its weight in gold, and probably better than spending thousands on therapy.
I owe loads of people money for the three therapy hours I've had over the years. But another good question, I think, didn't we?
We have. So this is around, we're seeing more organisations taking a gender-lensed approach to collecting housing data, including the members of the NHC. What is the potential greater impact of this approach, and how can it benefit the wider community?
I think actually, you know, data generally is something that comes up all the time. I think as a sector we're really weak. If I dare say, on data. I think it is something where big improvements have been made. There are lots of areas where we collect masses of data, but we don't actually do anything with it. So I think, and I think it, you know, the absence of some of the data that will probably, you know, that we need probably holds us back in a lot of areas. So I think it is something that there is a general issue with data as an area where we could really see big improvements. But I have been given this badge about your campaign, so I'm thinking I would actually love to hear about your campaign. I think this would be because I think this links into data, doesn't it?
It does, definitely, yeah. So the campaign's focused on that very issue, really, that it's a huge opportunity, becoming more interested in data, and the world is more and more becoming sort of subject to the data we hold, really, with AI and all of that. And when you really dig into that data, it very often has a male bias in it. So we've got huge gaps in our understanding around around women, but also not just what you might think of data, but the insight and the information that we hold on women in their lives, and what their needs might be. So the campaign looks to just really put a spotlight on the good work that's going on in this area. So how we make ourselves really attractive employers for women, and how we make ourselves really great landlords for our female tenants through using the data that we've got and seeing it through a female lens, but also looking at where might we have gaps in data, where might we not know what's really going on for people. Because if you don't know what's going on for them, you cannot make the right policies and services
Yeah.
for them. It's a one-size-fits-all approach, which kind of serves no one, does it really? So it's really just encouraging the sector when we're now at this pivotal point where data is going to play a massive role in what the sector looks like over the next few years. Just be curious about what that data is really telling you and who it's really reflecting.
I think it's really, really interesting. It's I sort of started my career in detergents. And so fabric conditioner and washing powder and washing up liquid and that sort of stuff. And we were supplying the major multiples, so Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Asda, a few that no longer exist, I should say. And you know, so I'm going back to, this was the early 90s, and the level of data that we held was incredible. You know, that focus on the customer. And fast-moving consumer goods is the sector, the industry that has the greatest focus on customers. So for me, it's kind of it's interesting, I think, when you come from a background where the customer absolutely is king, and where, you know, I was always sort of told the minute you take your finger off the pulse, you're not going to know when the heart stops beating. And I think there is a lot of that needs to be brought into. I think we're getting much better at it. But
it comes back to that thing of there's not always a lot of choice and agency. So in the way that in the commercial sector, you absolutely have to know your customer because they're not going to buy your product otherwise. How have we been able to not be so focused on that over the years? So I think we do have a bit of catching up to do, but it's like what you said around, you know, delivery and the opportunity being now. The opportunity really is now with the focus on tenant satisfaction and needing that workforce for the future to really get this right. So that's what we're hoping to do at Wish, is to support the sector really in that effort to get this right.
And I think that the sector is making big strides forward with that. I spoke to a number of landlords around the time of the pandemic who said that when they were doing very detailed conversations with you know, when they were getting in touch with everybody to say, are you okay, that actually the percentage of tenants who needed support was tiny compared with what they had thought. So and that was allowing them to re-engineer their organisations to say, well, actually, if it's 5% of people who really need support, well, we can put all that focus on them, because you know, you've got all these other people who are like, I'm absolutely fine. Just, you know, you can kind of leave me alone.
The insight that it gives you, it's brilliant.
The insight so that you can shape your services to deliver better where it's needed. So
brilliant, thank you. So we're in and out of time. I think we could talk forever, couldn't we? But should we ask our question that we ask all of our podcast guests? And would you like to ask it, Helen?
Yes. If you had one wish for the sector, Tracy, what would that be?
I'll ask a short-term one, and I want to see. A lot of my wishes have kind of been granted through the spending review. So I'm going to say, short-term, what I'd like to see is that we get the flexibility so that we can deliver regeneration, housing-led regeneration in the north. Because, we need to build new homes. We absolutely have to do that, but we have to deal with, you know, with the aging stock that is at the end of its life that we can't keep chucking money at, and we need to deal with those communities that have been left behind and where they are crying out for regeneration. So flexibility and funding around regeneration is my wish.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, we'll put that one in the genie lamp. And hopefully, well, we've seen some of them come true, haven't we? So I think we might have a little bit of power. Who knows? Oh, Tracy, it's been wonderful to chat with you. Thank you for giving up your time in what's going to be a really busy day for you. I know, running around the conference and engaging in that program. We really appreciate it. I found it so insightful.
No, enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you for tuning in. This podcast will be available to download from our podcast platforms. So Yes, if you want to watch back and you want to share it with others that you think might be interested, then please do that. And series 3 of our podcast will be landing soon as well, so keep an eye out for that. But you've been watching the If I Had One Wish podcast. Thank you and see you soon.